Train service is being suspended at 4 MTR stations on the Kwun-Tong line today because of a large-scale tunnel upgrade project. Passengers who wish to travel between Ho Man Tin and Prince Edward stations have to take alternative routes. Mimo Singhai reports.
Early Sunday morning, MTR staff were busy at Prince Edward Station as train service between Ho Man Tin and Prince Edward stations on the Kwun-Tong line was suspended for the whole day.
For the Chun Wan line, go to platform 104.
Announcements about the suspension and special arrangements were constantly broadcast inside the station. With the suspended service, Prince Edward Station became the only interchange stop between the green and red lines, with the latter being the Chun Wan line. Passengers traveling to Mongkok and Yau Ma Tei stations need to take the Chun Wan line. Those heading to Ho Man Tin and Wan Po have to take the Tuen Ma line before boarding trains on the Kwun-Tong line to go to Wan Po. Passengers had to spend more time on commuting. Some did not mind that much. This passenger planned to travel to Ho Man Tin, one of the affected stations.
Somehow a bit, but it's only today. I think maybe 10 or 15 more minutes.
The thing that impedes our travel is just the slightly longer waiting time. But overall, I think it's still fine. I think it's all right because Hong Kong is always crowded. Normal as always, not really too crowded.
This boy said the directions and instructions provided by the staff were clear, but improvements could be made.
Although there's a lot of staff here, I think they should give these leaflets to everyone, and I get this because I asked them to get this, so I think they should give a lot of this so everybody will know.
To assist passengers during the temporary station shutdown, MTR said around 1,000 staff were deployed in relevant stations and bus stops.
Outside Ho Man Tin Station, residents can get to Yau Ma Tei for free by taking KMB's number 8 bus. Meanwhile, members of the public can also travel free of charge between Yau Ma Tei and Wan Po with bus route 30X. The MTR's maintenance work was launched in the early hours of Sunday. 50 large metal hangers for hanging power cables from the tunnel ceiling have to be replaced. The old hangers have been in use for over 40 years. The railway company said the service of the Kwun-Tong line will return to normal on Monday. Mims 9, TVB News.
A rocket attack on a football ground in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights killed 12 people, including children. Israeli authorities blame Iran-backed Palestinian group Hezbollah, which deny any involvement. And Israel has conducted strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Meanwhile, 30 Palestinians were killed and more than 100 injured on Saturday in an Israeli airstrike on a school in the Gaza Strip. Tracy Furness has more.
Bicycles lie on the ground next to the football field, where at least 12 people comprising teens and children were killed and 20 wounded by a rocket attack on Saturday. Israel blames the Iran-backed Palestinian group Hezbollah for the attack, which came just hours after an Israeli airstrike on South Lebanon, which killed 3 members of Hezbollah.
This tragic national tragedy was caused because of Hezbollah, the terror organization that fired a rocket here to this field. Our forensic team has made it clear. This rocket was a rocket called Falak 1. It is manufactured in Iran. It is delivered to Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the only terror organization in Lebanon that holds Falak 1.
Hagari called it the deadliest attack on Israeli civilians since the Hamas attack on October 7th last year that sparked the war in Gaza. Hezbollah has denied they were responsible for the attack. On Sunday, Israel released footage of what it said were attacks carried out against Hezbollah targets both deep inside Lebanese territory and in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, dozens of people, including a child, were killed Saturday when an Israeli strike hit a private girls' school in Deir al-Balah, where displaced Palestinians were taking refuge. Inside the Kaddeja Benevolent School, classrooms were in ruins. People were seen searching for victims under the rubble, and some were gathering the remains of those who were killed. Israel's military said it targeted a Hamas command center used to direct attacks against Israeli troops and where they stored weapons. Hamas called the Israeli claim false. Earlier, Israel's military ordered the evacuation of a part of a designated humanitarian zone in Gaza ahead of a planned strike on Khan Yunis on Saturday. Officials from the United States, Egypt, Qatar and Israel are scheduled to meet in Italy Sunday to discuss ceasefire negotiations. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Welcome back. The police have arrested 4 people, including a 14-year-old boy, on suspicion of using fake money to defraud 11 people out of $8.63 million in cryptocurrency. Helen Chen reports.
The police seized 5,000 so-called training notes that were worth $1,000 at face value during their operation. They found that a criminal group posed as managers of a cryptocurrency exchange shop and made online claims that it wanted to purchase cryptocurrency at higher prices than the market value. The scammers then used different excuses to delay payment to victims after making the transactions. And even when they made payments, they used training notes and only put real bills at the top and bottom of the pile. The police took action when the scammers visited a mini warehouse in Mongkok 2 days ago. They also raided the homes of the key members of the criminal group and arrested 4 Chinese men, aged between 14 to 39. 2 of the men were said to be the brains of the syndicate, responsible for arranging fake banknotes and searching for potential victims online. The other 2 were said to be responsible for making the fake exchange shops appear legitimate. The police said 10 people were arrested earlier. The total amount of money involved in the fraud was said to be $11 million. Helen Chen, TVB News.
Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Algernon Yao said Chief Executive John Lee's trip to Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam is set to bring more business for ASEAN countries to Hong Kong. Jackie Lin reports.
Chief Executive John Lee is leading a delegation to visit 3 ASEAN member states, Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam. One goal is to explore business opportunities, while Singapore, Thailand and Indonesia, where the city leader previously visited, boast bigger economies. Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Algernon Yao told TVB News the ASEAN destinations this time have their own potential.
Hong Kong people there doing business in Cambodia, including property, transportation, manufacturing. And Laos is a rising up economy, despite it is very small, but the mining, agricultural products, and solar panels are not unknown by the industry.
The Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in London was earlier put in the spotlight after 3 men linked to the office were arrested in May under the UK's new national security legislation.
The saga involving the London Economic and Trade Office earlier. Do you think it hampered any economic opportunities, prospects, or dialogue with Western countries?
Different people will have different positions after what's been reported in UK, but it doesn't stop us reaching out to different people, different sectors. We are trying our best despite the situation.
Yao said for now the government has no plans to relocate or close any offices in Europe or the US. Another incident, the saga of a Dubai prince and his abandoned $500 million Hong Kong family office.
One single incident should not do any harm at all to our intention to invite the investment in Hong Kong or doing business with them totally.
Any efforts undertaken to prevent any similar incidents from arising?
Well, I think all information sharing is necessary. We are trying to inform and advise all the involved parties about the Islamic culture.
Yao said education efforts are ongoing about the Islamic culture with business chambers and different sectors to help the city tap the Middle East market. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
An advocate for neurodiversity hopes members of the public can gain more understanding of the needs of neurodivergent people in the city. Neurodiversity refers to the different ways a person's brain processes information, and neurodivergent people think and behave differently than most others. Mimo Singhai has more.
Early this month, an Irish dance show designed for children who are neurodivergent was staged at Hong Kong Cultural Centre in Tsim Sha Tsui. Fields of Tender was an interactive event with dancers inviting young children to join the performance. Neurodiversity can include neurological or developmental conditions, including ADHD, ASD, and Asperger's. Jonathan Mock is a neurodiversity advocate who himself is a neurodivergent person. He was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 36 and then ASD a year later. Mock said he found it hard to accept the news at first, so he kept it to himself. Speaking of the reasons that led to his becoming a neurodiversity advocate, Mock highlighted his wish to localize neurodiversity.
You also had lots of wonderful folks such as Richard Branson, Jamie Oliver, Michael Phillips. They all have their challenges, but they managed to shine. And then I started to ask myself, hey, most of the examples about neurodiversity are not necessarily from the APAC regions. Let's try to bring in neurodiversity at least to Hong Kong first, and then to other places in the region.
In a TED Talk, Mock said neurodivergent people should not see their conditions as a curse but a blessing. He said the diagnosis helps him gain a better self-management.
Neurodiversity are mostly passed down by family genes. For lots of these families, they also have challenges including gambling, alcohol, or marriage breakdown. I know what can trigger my behavior, so I know how to manage myself well.
While Mock said the government has now provided more support to the group than before, he suggested that authorities allocate resources to aging neurodivergent individuals.
As they go out, they also have their own set of problems. Finance. Neurodivergent community members quite often suffer from high employment rates, or they don't save a lot.
Mark hopes the concept of neurodiversity can be understood by as many people as possible in the city. He added collaboration with different sectors will be helpful. Mimo Singhai, TVB News.
The Beijing Central Axis on Saturday officially entered UNESCO's World Heritage List, China's 59th jewel on the prestigious list. Danny Zhou has the story.
During the World Heritage Committee's 46th session in New Delhi, the session chairman congratulated China upon the inscription of the Beijing Central Axis. As the world's longest urban central axis that endures today, it spans 7.8 kilometers and covers an area of 589 hectares. The Beijing Central Axis roots date back to 800 years ago from the Yuan dynasty and was further developed in the Ming and Qing dynasties. It starts with the Yongding Gate and ends with a bell tower running through the heartland from south to north. It is the backbone of Beijing and a thread that holds a constellation of Asian architectural complexes together, including the Forbidden City, City Gates, Wanning Bridge, and the Jingshan Park. Along the line, the city was divided in two symmetric wings with well-spaced and proportioned buildings that adhered to hierarchical requirements and ritual traditions. The Axis is a timekeeper of a Beijing city that witnessed folk activities for hundreds of years and has itself become a precious spectacle to behold owing to its historical and cultural significance. Driven by passion, a local Beijing journalist has spent 30 years making an extensive collection of over 100,000 historic photos of the Central Axis from around the world and created a documentary that links major events that took place there. Meanwhile, the Beijing Central Axis Heritage Protection Center adopted digital tools to monitor and preserve the relics and launched projects such as Digital Central Axis and Cloud Central Axis. They reproduced the historical evolution of the marvel in 4D with immersive audio and video experiences, allowing visitors to fly over the 15 heritage sites and view the changes from the past to the present. It helps them to better understand the culture and historical atmosphere of the Axis. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
A quick look at the weather tomorrow. Cloudy with showers and a few squally thunderstorms. Showers will be heavy at times and temperatures are expected to range between 26 and 29 degrees Celsius and the relative humidity 80 to 95%. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.